What's going on? It's Matt Plapp, and we are back with another restaurant roundup. Got my words mixed up. Vacation too much last week. Restaurant Expert Roundup. We got Chris Hill, who's an author and a chef. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here, buddy.
So I'm back at the grind. Last week I was traveling, doing my podcast, and then a little snow skiing in and out. So back to what I hoped was warmer than Utah, but it's still cold here in Cincinnati. You're in Virginia. What's the weather like down there?
It's kind of cold and a little bit weary. We got a little bit of snow last night, but nothing's sticking. So it's one of those kind of cold, rainy winter days.
Overcast, gray days.
Yeah.
So tell the audience who you are, what you do, and a little about your background.
Yeah. First of all, Matt, thanks for having me here. It should be fun to chat with you. I grew up in Atlanta. Went to the University of Alabama, got a double major in English and Spanish, then a master's in marketing. All on the way, I worked in restaurants, and that's kind of where my passion always was. Kind of grew into becoming a chef. Moved up to Virginia after a year or two in consulting. Worked with my cousin who owns some restaurants up here. He and I opened one up together. Ended up running that for about 5 years. Sold my share. Now I do a lot of consulting, a lot of writing, and what would usually be speaking, which is kind of taken a backseat the last year or so. And then, actually, I'm an adjunct culinary instructor too, teaching marketing at the Culinary Institute of Virginia here in coastal Virginia. So, yeah, that's the quick roundup. That's
a little different college degree for a chef. You said English, you said Spanish and English?
Yeah, well, I had no clue what I wanted to do, which probably is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing here now. But my dad was in financial services, and he said, we love people that are well-rounded, which I think that's really kind of having a liberal art degree is a good way to go for anybody trying to kind of figure it out. Unless you're a doctor, or my wife's a physical therapist, unless you're very targeted, I think it's good to have a good understanding of a lot of different things. So I wouldn't trade, and definitely knowing the Spanish helps in the kitchens too. So
that's what I was going to say, is that's got to be a huge plus being a chef, because I know most of my clients, their kitchen staff tend to be loaded with Hispanics.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, especially down in Atlanta. Up here in Virginia, not as much. What about in your area in Cincinnati? Do you have a lot of Hispanic kitchens, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot. And I travel the country for my podcast. We were just in Provo, Highland, and Park City, Utah. I think I've been to probably 30 states in the past year on it. And I think that's a trend everywhere. I think it's because, they have a certain focus and skill set that, I guess guys like me don't have as often as the others.
Well, and like they're unlike the average culinary student or kind of cook coming up. They're not worried really about putting their creative spin on things as much. Tell them what you want to get done, and it'll get done.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So the book, where'd the book come from? What was the inspiration for? What was the goal of it?
Yeah, so I wrote a book a couple years ago called Making the Cut, and that was me interviewing a bunch of great chefs, folks like Jeremiah Tower, Gavin Kaysen, Fabio Viviani, all sorts of great chefs. Kind of told their stories of success and failure, and what that kind of looked like, and the common threads that bind them all. But at the end of the day, I felt like, it gave some inspiration to folks, but it was more anecdotes. I wanted to bring something that actually was kind of grounded in facts. And so right now I'm finishing up a book called Lead Like a Chef, where I'm taking a lot of research and applying that, so that folks who leadership in our space is tough, and I want to give some folks some solid foundations they can kind of use to grow their leadership, and not just, oh, this person did a really good job, but this is why this works.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you mentioned leadership, because I've got a sheet that I do every day. It's my daily log sheet that I create the night before. It plans out my whole day, and 3 things on the top of it are, I need LMS: lead more, market more, and sell more. And the big part for me, I'm 5 years ago it was me and 1 employee. Now it's me and 28 employees, and 7 key managers. And I realized about 6 months ago that I was doing a lot of stuff, probably like these chefs are, but I wasn't giving my team, hey, here's how to do it, but here's the why. And to me, that's the leading part that I was missing.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the things a lot of folks don't really connect is the idea of leadership and how that ties into marketing and branding. And if you do a really good job of marketing and branding, and people know what you are, it makes your job as a leader a lot easier. You're attracting the right people, attracting the right customers, and then a lot of it can end up taking care of itself.
And I think from the chef standpoint, and let me know if this is the angle you're looking at there, is that a lot of the chefs they've created this, what they want. And for them they want somebody to do this part of it. They might not be the greatest at telling them, hey, here's why you're doing this part. Here's what happens when you don't do it right. Here's what happens when you do it right. I think that's probably the harder part, is people that are artistic in nature to lead from that standpoint.
Oh, for sure. Well, and like you said too, there's like the what and there's the how, but then like the why do you have to do it this way is super important. And like in any industry, whether it's retail or hospitality, you start out and you're on the front lines, right? You're working somewhere and you're putting out food, you're putting out sandwiches, you're putting out brunch, whatever it is. And then at some point, as you kind of work your way up, now you are responsible for people as a sous chef or executive chef or as an owner. The problem is the skill set is totally different when you're a line cook versus a sous chef or someone in management. So nobody really teaches us how to properly lead or manage. So that's kind of the inspiration and one of the pain points that I really saw with a lot of folks that were struggling out there.
Now, is this come from experience of your world when you grew up in the restaurant business and becoming a chef? What something that really shined on yourself?
Yeah, well, yeah. So, I kind of was thrown into the wolves a little bit. I had a boss when I was consulting back in Atlanta, and I saw kind of the opposite of what a good leader was. And it's funny because I always feel like one of these days she'll end up watching one of these and realize it was her. But yeah, and then I ended up leading and running kitchens, and then having my kitchen for the restaurant that I was partner in, and realized that there's a lot that I didn't know, a lot that the whole kind of energy was revolving around me as a leader, the kind of the tone that I set and everything else. So it took a lot of kind of catching up, but definitely places where I faltered and had challenges. And I think a lot of us too, when we're younger, we don't really understand. You look at folks like even Chef Thomas Keller, who really respected chef, but in his early days he had the kind of hot temper, and people like David Chang, same thing. I think a lot of us kind of grew up and get to our 30s, maybe early 40s, and realize, okay, maybe there's more to it than just me yelling and screaming and getting every single dish out the right way.
Yeah, there's a song, I've got a playlist I call my daily routine. I try and listen to it a couple times a day. It's got about 7 songs on it. One of the songs, the beginning of it says, "Tell me, what do you see when you look at me?" And it makes me reflect on, am I doing the right things for the people that are following me? Is my team, am I leading by example? And a lot of times, honestly, I think 2020 was probably the most reflection I had to do, because there was stuff coming from every angle, no matter what you thought of COVID, what you thought of Trump or Biden, what you thought of whatever. Those are little things that can be inflected into a personality of a team and go the wrong way. Yeah.
And then on top of it, with COVID, you have a dynamic, work dynamic unlike anything any of us have ever experienced before.
Yep.
A lot of people reaching out to me, for help, and it wasn't the best year for me mentally. It took me a little while to kind of get things into gear. So, which is hard too, because sometimes when you're the person at the top, like everyone kind of relies on you to always have the answers, always relies on you to have the energy, and sometimes maybe it's okay to not.
Yeah. And let's talk about that aspect of it from the chef side. Is that this year's been a trying time on chefs, because there's been a lot of restaurants that, if they're not closed down, they're at a different capacity. They're at a different role. Like food travels differently, pick up and to go, than it does when you're sitting down. I talked to a friend who's a chef recently, And he's like, Matt, I make $100 steaks. We make amazing things. He's like, this steak doesn't really travel well to be heated up. And that he struggled with how to change his skill or change his menu to reflect what the market conditions were. What did you hear about that angle?
Oh, I mean, a lot. I mean, and I think the folks that were able to kind of keep moving and keep things going realize that, all right, like things are obviously not the way that we want them to be. What can we do to, live it another day? So, folks that are, I mean, when you say the $100 steak, people, I assume, watching know that obviously there's a lot that goes into a $100 steak, including the ambiance, the atmosphere in which you are supposed to enjoy it.
Yep.
If you're going to come pick up that steak and eat it at the house, it's going to be a totally different experience, and you might pay $30 or $40 for the steak, but you're not going to pay $100 per person meal. So I think the folks that were able to keep moving were open to new opportunities and said, you know what, like if any time we were able to kind of think outside the box in a way that's not connected to our brand entirely, it would be this year. Where folks like out in Chandler's restaurant out in Seattle, they're same thing, $100, $200 person dinners. They said, all right, well, we have someone on our staff that loves to make bagels, so we'll let them make bagels for breakfast, then we'll do hamburgers for lunch, and but the core of who they were didn't change, just the product offering. What did you see? I mean, did you what were you hearing?
Yeah, a lot of the same things. A lot of you had chefs that had done the same thing for 10 years. Yeah. And it was a shock to their system, because I talked to a couple friends of mine in the business and said, Matt, we tried to stay course. And then we realized, the one guy said, I actually had my own food brought to a friend's house because I wanted to experience it with him not knowing who it was.
Right.
He's like, it was a tough pill to swallow, that like you mentioned, the ambiance, the service, and even just the food itself wasn't what I expected. Mm-hmm. And he had to alter. But the hard part, a lot of them I heard from, and it took a lot of them to really June or July to alter, because everybody was under this perception it was a short-term thing. I mean, we all thought it was going to be a 3 to 6 week shutdown. I mean, that was the perception. That's what we were told. That's what everybody kind of felt. And then it goes to 4 months, 5 months, and they're like, okay, we've got to do it. But it was a fear of crushing their own brand, though, that if we do this, how do we reverse it when everything's open, that we're still this quality?
Yeah, exactly. And like, I can tell you, for me personally, like, I hated like putting together a nice dish. Like this is the way the dish is supposed to look. Then you put it on a plate, and this is you see it go out to a customer. It's different when you put it in a box. And then someone doesn't enjoy it for another 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If anything, maybe this is the year where we all had to kind of learn there's only certain things we can control. And that's obviously not one of them.
Yeah. And I think the other side of it, which isn't the chef side, but was the entrepreneur side, the marketing of it, was my wife and I, we have a couple restaurants we enjoy to go love and sit down at. We didn't eat those during COVID, during the shutdowns. Like, I felt like a bad customer for the one, but I'm like, I go there to sit there, to hear that music, to eat food. It's a date night. The kids aren't there. How do I replicate that at home? I couldn't. I'm like, I'd rather just get a cheeseburger and French fries at, Five Guys and sit on my sofa and sulk.
Exactly. Well, I heard some people, doing things like, like virtual, like wine dinners and things like that. But still, like, I'm kind of, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of sick of hearing like the virtual town hall, the virtual whatever. It's like, all right, like everything's virtual, and hopefully, maybe by summertime things will get closer to normal, what we would think of.
Yeah, I'm hoping that. One question, last question, and I want to talk about your website a little, what you do, and let people know how to reach out to you. Ghost kitchens. I don't know your familiarity with that. I'm going to guess you've had conversations with it. I talked to a client the other day who was talking about, hey, I'm the owner of the restaurant, and I'm looking for every way to not only stay afloat now, but maybe insulate us for the future. And but at the same time, I got to remember, I got to go to my chef and say, hey, I got this idea to create a ghost kitchen that is, fried chicken, and we're a pasta restaurant. But he saw the opportunity to fill a gap on like Uber Eats and Grubhub.
Right.
What have you seen there from some of the chef side of things with regards to getting out of their norms and creating different oddball ghost kitchens?
I think it's a great idea. And I think also for, say you have a really creative chef that wants to have their menu, that's a way for them to still have their menu, but then you can kind of feed the beast. That way you can still make some money with your ghost kitchen doing whatever else, where your ghost kitchen is not really branded per se. It's not tied to your kitchen or to this chef. So they can kind of put the food out, but then to help make ends meet, but then they can still do their menu until things kind of come back around. I think we've seen a lot of things speed up, right? Ghost kitchens were starting to happen, maybe a couple of years ago. They were obviously sped up. Things like curbside and delivery sped up. So it's interesting how technology in a strange way is sped things up for us.
Yeah, I'm reading a book. I don't know if you've read that. I'm almost done with it. It's called Deep Work.
Yeah. Cal Newport?
Yep.
Yeah.
Almost done with it. And one thing in there it talked about was that, technology and all these things that we see that are conveniences have sped up so much, but a lot of us haven't sped up our learning because of the distraction of all of them.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I think, again, one of the challenges of you have different generations in the workplace right now. Going back to leadership, with you have the kind of the old guard, then you have the younger crew coming in, and even like the teaching now, I feel like I'm like an old guy when I see some of my students that there's a certain disconnect in the way they want to interact and communicate. So for sure. So
tell us about Chris Hill Online. How can people work with you? What do you do? And what's your expertise with regards to helping chefs and restaurateurs? Yeah. So my kind of whole mission is to get people to connect with the work and do the best work they can in order to build and grow meaningful careers. So a lot of that is through my writing, through my speaking. And yeah, I'll go out to different companies, kind of like you, across the country. Yep. Typically speaking, sometimes it'll be drilling into the menus, but a lot of times it's really more on the inspirational side, trying to get people on board with the same mission, with their leadership, with the company culture, the branding, everything else, in order to grow their company, in order to grow their staff, and at the end of the day, hopefully leave a legacy behind. So yeah. Cool. And is that the best way to reach you? ChrisHillOnline.com? Yeah, Chris Hill Online. I do a lot of my work on Facebook. So Facebook Chef Chris Hill. I have a pretty large following over there. I'm here on LinkedIn. All the typical places for social media, but yeah, it's the world we live in now, right? Yeah, it is. It's all online. I sometimes think I exist online more than I do in person. I know. You're out there somewhere in the ether, right? Yeah, somewhere. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time today. I look forward to when's the book coming out? What's the expected release date? Well, I told my wife I'd be done by the end of this month, which I'm not sure that's going to happen, but we're close. A lot of it was done about a year and a half ago, and then COVID came, and I had to kind of rework my whole ideology for it. Some of the studies had to change. So, yeah, I'm thinking maybe April or so it'll hopefully be out. Cool. So, we look forward to it. Let me know when it's out. I look forward to buying one of the first copies and then having you back on to talk about specifics in the book. Yeah, let's chat again soon, buddy. It'd be great. Cool. Thanks, Chris. All right, Matt. Take care. Bye.